folks, and welcome back to another video. My name is Shah and this is Thoroughly Enjoyed Books. I feel like I made my grand reappearance on YouTube and then swiftly disappeared again, and that is because I was so sick in January. I'm still recovering. I had really bad flu, fever, pleurisy, because I'm a Victorian child, and my lungs and my cough are still there, still recovering. I just couldn't film. I could barely get dressed for 2 weeks. It was really, really rough. Having said all that, I read 7 books in January. I would have read a lot more if I hadn't have gotten so ill, because I was partway through a few books as well that I just hadn't got around to finishing. We also have 3 cats in the room right now, so this could be a bit chaotic. Daisy is currently asleep behind a cushion. Jewel is doing her normal thing of just running around like a crazy cat, and Esty is coming in and out and seeing what we're doing. With 3 cats and me coughing, let's just see how this video goes. So like I said, I read 7 books in January. Now 4 of them were graphic novels and 1 of them was a poetry collection, so those were quite quick to read. But I did also read 2 full-length novels, so I have done quite well. And I also made a start on 1 quite hefty book, and I DNFed a book as well, so I will get to all of that throughout this video. So the first thing I'm going to start with is the book that I did start off the year with, and that was Good Material by Dolly Alderton. This is, I think, her 4th book and 2nd novel, because she's got a couple of non-fiction books and memoirs, and I really, really loved Ghosts, which was her first novel that came out in 2020. I really, really enjoyed Ghosts, really enjoyed its exploration of dating and the current dating scene. Somebody who is about to turn 30 this year and still single and has been single for a really long time, I really enjoyed exploring and relating to just what it's like to date in the modern world. So with Good Material, it again explores Dolly Alderton's specialist subject, which is relationships. But in this book we follow Andy, who has just separated from Jen, his long-term partner, and he's quite reluctant to accept that. He doesn't see why the relationship went downhill. He wanted to be with her, he thought they were great, and it kind of explores that notion that you see a lot on social media, where women are talking about their experiences with men and their relationships, where they have been begging and begging and begging and begging for years in their relationships for the man to step up and do something, and that he just never does. And then when they eventually leave, he's blindsided, even though the reasons for that breakup have been explicitly stated for a very long time. That's kind of the concept of this book, and it's from Andy's point of view as he navigates this breakup and the fallouts and just how life changes so dramatically once you go through a breakup. I found this book really fascinating. At first, I was really, really gripped by it and really enjoyed reading from a perspective that I guess women often think about. We often sit there and think about, well, what is going through their head? What is going through a man's head? And I'm aware I'm talking in very heteronormative terms here, but it is a heteronormative book. It was very validating in a lot of ways to know that the experience that I have felt and that my friends have felt is almost universal. But alongside that validation, it's also like quite heartbreaking that, you know, the words that we say so often fall on deaf ears, and it's not an experience unique to one person or another. We've pretty much all experienced it. So that was really validating. I really enjoyed reading about Andy's conflict, his internal conflict, and how he was really struggling to accept this breakup, was really struggling to move on. And when he was moving on, because he was older and had been in such a long-term relationship, the dating scene for him had shifted so much as well that he couldn't grasp it. The idea of casual dating and casual sex was something so foreign to him that when he found himself in that situation, in a situationship, it was quite intriguing to read how he navigated it and how he couldn't quite understand it. And I think that really worked in his favour, and that made him a little bit more endearing, because we'd spent so much of the book really frustrated with him being unable to see why Jen had left him and unable to understand that the relationship was over. That when he got himself into a situationship and he didn't understand it and he didn't get the nuances of it, he was kind of taken aback and quite shocked. And I liked seeing that from a male point of view as well, because I've only ever talked about situationships with girls. And I've had conversations with guys about them before, and they just don't see it as a concept. They don't think it's a thing. So that was quite interesting to see a male's point of view of that as well, particularly from someone who had often been in long-term relationships. However, this book took a turn at the end that I wasn't quite anticipating and I didn't really enjoy. Without spoiling too much of it, the last maybe 70-ish pages switches to Jen's point of view. And I didn't like that. I could see the point of it, and I think the point was to show this is, relationships are a two-way thing and nobody experiences a breakup in the same way. But I think it really took away from Andy's point of view when it came to Jen's point of view, because we'd already experienced so much of that relationship, and I think it was easy to read between the lines of what had actually happened. We didn't need it explicitly stated. So I just didn't think we really needed that shift at the end. And there was a storyline that was kind of revealed in Jen's point of view that I wasn't a fan of. And I won't talk about it in this wrap up, but I will be doing a review of this very, very soon. I had intended to have already reviewed it, but being ill disrupted that. If we hadn't had that 70 pages at the end of Jen's point of view, it would have been a much stronger novel for me personally. But I did enjoy it. I do think it's worth a read, but I definitely preferred Ghosts. I'm then going to skip to the poetry book that I read and talk about the graphic novels all together, because I kind of read books in between them. So the next book I'm going to talk about is Please Do Not Judge This Exhibit by Jen Campbell. Jen Campbell is a poet and author and also booktuber. I'm pretty sure you know who she is already. She's fantastic. She reads a lot of literary fiction. I don't necessarily gel too much with her prose writing, and I read one of her previous poetry collections and didn't get it too much, but this one, can I just say, this is a masterpiece. So Jen is a disabled content creator. She was born with extradactyly, which she believes is possibly linked to Chernobyl, and she's talked about that on her channel before. She talks about it in this book as well. So in this collection, Jen has been going through fertility treatment in real life as well. During that process, a lot of her medical records came up, and she's also been in a hospital for a lot of her life and had a lot of medical procedures and has read her medical documents. And she's talked a lot about disfigurement and disability and the way that the medical field often dehumanises that. And in this poetry collection, it's all kind of interwoven together with her, the way she's spoken about in medical writing, the way that she experiences the hospital and medical treatment, and also how that interlinks with motherhood and becoming a mother. I want to be very careful with what I say because I don't want to put words into her mouth, because she's a real person with real experiences. But it's a very tragic, heartwarming and difficult read, but it's also so enlightening. And I don't want to dwell too much on this because I'm very conscious I'm talking about a real person's real experiences, and those are experiences that I don't have. What I can relate to is the fertility issues in this book, which I won't go into too much detail about my own body and things like that, but I think fertility is super personal, but also it's a more common experience than we're aware of. So I think there's something to relate to in this. I found it very difficult. I cried a couple of times throughout this book, but I also thought back on it afterwards and thought those poems were so distinct. And yes, there are obviously poems I preferred and poems that I didn't understand as well as some of the others. But even in those moments, I found that I could thoroughly understand the narrative that Jen had put together in this collection and how everything linked. And I just think it was so masterfully done. I love poetry collections that tell a story without being so in your face about it. And that was just something that in this collection was so evident. I don't think I can do enough justice to this. The prose poetry, the lyricism of the poetry, everything in it just really felt so real, and I don't know what else to say about it. I just think that this is it. Like I said, it's a masterpiece. It's so masterfully crafted, and I think everybody should read it. Like I said, I've previously read some of Jen's poetry and not understanding it all. I've read her previous collection, The Girl Aquarium. A lot of that went over my head. And I've read some of her poems that have been published in journals and magazines and things. And sometimes I really, really get them, and other times I really don't. But this collection is one that even when I didn't really get the poem, I got its place within this collection. And I can't wait to reread this and scribble all over it. I then finally read Queenie. I've had this book for so long. I pre-ordered this book and it came out in 2019. I'm pretty sure we had this discussion last time. Yes, in 2019. I pre-ordered it. It has taken me nearly 5 years to read this book. And I really enjoyed it. I didn't love it. It wasn't my favourite book, but I did really enjoy it. Now, I don't know if this suffered from the fact that I've also was reading so many books about breakups that I had just had enough. But let me get into it. So Queenie is a 25-year-old woman who again has just broken up with her long-term partner and is really struggling to come to terms with it. She believes they're on a break, that eventually they're going to come back together, and that at this moment in time they are just both going their separate ways to find each other, and then they're going to come back to each other. But amongst all of that is Queenie's experience of racism. So Tom is white while Queenie is black, and there have been several microaggressions from his family directed towards her, and even from him himself. From the beginning, you're not really a huge fan of Tom. So the whole time that Queenie is pining for him, you're quite confused. Or at least I was quite confused when I was reading it. I didn't understand why he was so yearned after, why she wanted to be with him so much, especially because she was so vocal about the racism she experienced and the microaggressions that she was experiencing as well, and how she could clearly see that they were unacceptable. But during this book, Queenie has also come to terms with her own sexuality and her own mental health. She is sleeping around with a lot of different people. She's craving attention and love and affection. And you find out a lot about her childhood and why she craves this attention and why she struggles so much for this need for love. It was a really great book. I really enjoyed it, like I said. I just found there was something in it missing. And I don't necessarily know what that was. I don't know if that was an emotional connection to Queenie, because I did see a lot of myself in her and her behaviours, and I've done the same things. You know, the sexual promiscuity after a breakup and just wanting to feel needed and, you know, trying to reclaim a part of yourself that you feel like you've lost. I got that so much. The therapy that she goes through was quite hard hitting as well. There was one conversation that was very, very similar to a conversation I myself have had with my therapist, but I still somehow felt disconnected from Queenie. And I don't know why. There's just something with this book that I can't quite put my finger on. That's not to say it wasn't a great book that I'm grateful to have read. I did really enjoy it, and I'm really looking forward to watching the TV show, which has either just come out or is just about to come out. I think this is a great book that explores what it's like to be part of a multi-ethnic relationship and the struggles of being in your mid-20s and not knowing who you are after getting out of a breakup. And I think it is one that I can see the value in and can understand why so many people really enjoyed. It just wasn't my favourite. And then the last 4 books that I'm going to talk about were all graphic novels, and I don't think it's going to be any surprise to anybody that it was all of the Heartstopper books. I say all of them. It's volume 2, 3, 4 and 5, which is the most recent. I am so late to the game when it comes to Heartstopper. I will just hold up the 5th one, I think, just because it's the most recent. I didn't read any of the Heartstopper books until like the end of last year. I can't even remember. I think it might have even been December. And I really, really wanted to read them. I am obsessed with the TV show. It's my new comfort show. I watch it repeatedly if I'm feeling down. Like, I will just stick it on and watch the whole series. I don't want to talk too much about them because I'm sure everybody already knows what these are about. These are about Nick and Charlie, who Charlie is gay and openly gay. At the beginning of the first graphic novel, he meets Nick, and very quickly Nick starts questioning his sexuality, and he turns out to be bisexual. And they obviously meet and fall in love and uncover their sexuality and learn together. But it's so much deeper than that as well. It's about friendship and being who you are and standing up for yourself, but also how homophobic bullying can have a long-lasting impact on you. But there are themes of depression in here, and eating disorders come up quite a lot, which can be quite difficult if that's something you have experienced. I've experienced eating disorders myself, so it is something that I find quite difficult to watch, and luckily with the TV show in particular, I had been warned that there was going to be some eating disorder stuff, which prepared me for it, and I got through it, and I think it's really, really well done. It is so well done, it's brilliant. And I think that this whole series is just something that young people need. And I'm so grateful it exists, and I wish it existed when I was a teenager, because I think it would have helped me come to terms with my own bisexuality like so much earlier. I just think that all of these are stunning. Like I said, I didn't want to dwell on those too much because they're such popular books and everybody has pretty much read them. I'm so late to the table. But those were the 7 books that I did read. So there was also a book that I DNF'd. I can't remember the title of it, and I can't find it on my library app either, but I'll put a picture of it up here. This is a book that is basically just about women's contributions to science and STEM and the world, and I just kind of had this on at one point while I was cleaning my bathroom and listened to it for a few hours, but I was taking so little of it in that after I stopped that cleaning session, I just never listened to it again, and then it expired. So I read half of this and then just decided I wasn't that interested in it. I might pick it up again in the future because it is free on my library app, but it just didn't give me enough. And then the one book that I am currently reading, and at this point I am about 350 pages in. It's taken me a while, but it is the Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie. This is a novel about 2 people who fall out of an aeroplane. This is a book that I find really hard to describe, and even though I'm halfway through it, I don't really have a clue what is going on. But it is about Jabril Farishta and Saladin Chamcha, who fall out of a hijacked plane and wash up on an English beach, and their survival becomes this kind of like miracle legend. But they are like kind of 2 opposites. One is like a figment of good and one is a figment of evil, and I won't go into too much detail in this video, like I said, because I haven't really got a clue what's going on. I'm quite enjoying it, but it's absurd, and I think it's deliberately absurd. So I am halfway through this, and I will have this one finished early February, I hope. So these are all the books that I read in the month of January. Please let me know if you've read any of these books, and if you have, what did you think of them? Let me know in the comments down below. If you've made it to this point in the video, please do leave me a book stack emoji down below if you haven't got anything else to say. And I will also leave my links down below to my Instagram, my Storygraph, and all that good stuff, so you can come and follow me on there and talk to me about books. And I will see you in another video very, very soon. Take care. Bye.